Hi, a rough, masculine voice greeted Victoria over her shoulder. It was a cold, windy night. She was alone. Not that she came to the spiritual ship cruise alone. She had company, and it was family. Victoria turned and smiled at the man. He was beautiful. God, his cheekbone was well carved. His tiny, well-trimmed beard went about its fine business over his face. His thick black hair was a perfect coiffure. His shirt wasn't fully buttoned, and so she could tell the man was well built. He wore a plain sky blue shirt on white shorts. He was a living confirmation that Christian men weren't boring. Hello, Victoria responded as she put her eyes and instincts to work in seconds. Gosh, he's fine. Her mind yelled, but she composed herself and stood there in all her elegance. I'm Blake Harrison Jacob, he told her, stretching his hand for a handshake. She took his big hand into hers as they kept staring into each other's brown eyes. Victoria could tell she was in his thoughts, his breath, in his soul. In 3 seconds, he exhaled 5 times. She could tell he was into her as much as she was into him. Who wouldn't be? She was beautiful, fragile, but well built. She looked like she was a model from Somalia or even India. Her face, the smoothness, it was the Victoria effect. She always had it, and Blake had just been trapped. Sorry I was staring too much. Pardon me, but you're beautiful. Thank you. So what's your name? Victoria. Quite befitting. He scoffed and adjusted himself to stand closer to her. My father runs a church in Oklahoma, so I'm here representing him. So that explains the accent and probably the look. She told him, and it made him smile, exposing the best set of teeth she had ever seen. Are you affirming that I'm a very attractive man? He asked, and took a gulp from the drink in his hand. Oh, please. You do not need an affirmation. God made us all beautiful. That is what the Bible teaches us. What do you say? Victoria's gaze broadened. She took a second look at the man, and she knew her first opinion was not wrong. But she was not completely correct. His eyes weren't brown like hers. They were the color of the sea, blue. She sighed, inhaled and exhaled. It was a living masterpiece. I say, you're a very attractive man, she finally told him and smiled back. Babe, her husband's voice called from behind her. He was holding 2 bottles of drinks. Obviously, one was for her, and the other was for him. For the first time, Blake's eye went to Victoria's finger. She was hooked. His happy stare slowly disappeared. He thought he had found his Venus, probably now untrue. You're married? You never asked. Well, I'm back, babe. Kelvin toothed happily, handing over Victoria's drink while he stared at the man in front of him. Pastor Blake! Wow! It's such a pleasure seeing you here. I didn't know you would be on the ship cruise. Honey, this is Pastor Blake, Harrison Jacob. Oh, I didn't know, he answered Harrison. Yeah, met him just a few minutes ago. He's a good man of God. Yes, he is. Pastor Blake did so well in the last minister conference that I had to take his contact, and we have been talking. Blake chuckled happily. He took another gulp of his drink and shook his head in agreement. So this is Victoria, your wife? Yes, the one I've always mentioned in our phone calls. Wow, she's beautiful. Of course, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Ever, he told Blake, sliding his hand around his wife's waist. Pastor K was a fine man, maybe not as fine as Pastor Blake, but God made him handsome in his own way. The man was a hunk, tall, well-built, bald, but his full, well-trimmed beard did justice to his look. They talked more until there was a call for the 12 hours worship and prayer session to begin. To be continued. The room was dark. The lights had been turned off. Only the moon supplied some sort of brightness to the room. Victoria walked in quietly. Her steps were stealthy. She had her black heels in her hands as she tiptoed. That's unnecessary. Kelvin's voice came up. She hadn't noticed him standing close to the window. She knew at once that he had seen her drive in, pull her shoes, and tiptoe. She stopped, licked her lips, and exhaled. Yeah. Kelvin sipped from the glass of cold water in his hand. He dropped it on the table in the middle of the living room and strolled back to the sofa. 8 years, Victoria. 8 years. And you just let it go? You let it all go for some minutes of pleasure? Why, Victoria? Why? I'm sorry, Kelvin. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, he yelled and panted
and then relaxed. You don't have to be sorry. Just tell me why. He told her more calmly. Her eyes were filled with tears. She wasn't talking. She just stood there and stared at him. He walked across the room to her side and held her. His grip tightened. He was angry, very angry, but was trying to control himself. We prayed together, asked God about our home. We sat and talked for hours about how we wanted our home to be. Yet, you go out and sleep with Blake? You sleep with Pastor Blake? Why? He finally screamed to her face. Because I love him, Kelvin, she whispered and broke down in tears. Kelvin waddled away from her in shock. His steps were slow. He kept staring at his wife in utter shock. She just broke him into 1,000 pieces. Look, I'm sorry, but we love each other. No, you both are crazy in lust, and you think it's love. He's a married man, for goodness sake. I know. Then you're crazy, Kelvin yelled at his wife. No, I'm in love. I feel alive again. I'm not just some Pastor Kelvin Akintokumbo Daniel's wife. Not just the mother of Martha and Joanne. Not just some lazy character in this boring setting. Boring? Did you just say boring, Victoria? Yes, marriage with you became boring. You became boring. All we have done since we married is fast, eat, pray, cancel, carry people's burden, and that has been boring? Yes, for me it has. You stopped caring. You stopped asking me what I wanted. I moved only because you asked me. I stopped only when you asked me to. Everything was about you and your God. Me? And my God? He asked through his pain-filled voice. I thought you loved God and wanted to do his will. If things changed, why didn't you talk to me about it? I'm not a dictator. Yes, because I'm human and make mistakes. But we are adults and could have talked about it. You would have seen me change for you, babe. I thought you loved God and wanted to serve him too. Yes, but not like this. Not like this. This life is too boring. Stop using that word. But it's the truth, and you need to know. She yelled back at him. This may be the hardest thing you've heard, but this is done. We are done. What does that even mean? It means I'm tired of this marriage, and I want out. What are you saying? Kelvin asked in pain. He could literally feel his chest aching as he spoke. I'm saying I want out. A divorce? Yes, she replied and looked away quickly. No, don't look away. Look at me and talk to me, he yelled to her face. I'm done. Don't you get it? Victoria told him. Well, I'm not done and I'm not giving you a divorce. Fine, I'm leaving all the same. Leaving me all the same? Wait, was it the reason you started wearing your strings again? He asked and scoffed. You stopped wearing them since after the birth of Joanne. Was it the reason you brought out your full makeup box? Was he? Answer me, Victoria. The waist trainer, the body waxing, facial treatment. You hadn't done them in years, you know. Victoria could not look up at her husband. Her eyes and clothes were soaked. They were both sweating and in tears. She sat on the sofa, panting and sniffling her own tears. You don't love me anymore, V? You really don't? He repeated and scoffed as he watched her get up and walked into their bedroom. He couldn't bring himself to sleep, so he stayed up all night until 4:30 a.m. when nature finally came calling. By the time he woke up at 7 a.m., she was gone. To be continued.